Welcome to the Elevating La Cultura podcast, a space where I talk with Latinas who are passionate about what they do and are willing to share that passion with others to change the narrative, especially for the next generation. Each season is centered around different topics, but all with the Latina perspective. Welcome to season 11, where I'm talking all things finance. I'm so excited to share these powerful conversations. So vámonos, and let's get into it. All right, we are doing something different. I am recording live with my guests, and I am also here just on the computer because I had to rig up a system that will record both Jasmine and Adriana and myself in the easiest way possible. But we just wrapped up the Latina Brilliance Mini Summit focusing on finance, and these were my two amazing speakers. Adriana and Jasmine have both been on the podcast before. They are like recurring guests, so this is probably not the last time you'll see them. But before we get into all that we talked about, I wanted to share about what they specifically talked about for this event. With this episode, I would love to just kind of give you an insight into the conversations that we were having, because it was good. It was good. If you were there, I'm glad that you contributed to the conversation, because the conversation was popping. The questions were fire, and it all started with the workshops that these two jefas led. So why don't you go and tell us the names of your workshops and a little bit about what you talked about. And Jasmine, you can go first since you were the first one to open up the whole summit.
Sure. So I'm Jasmine Lopez, the CEO, founder of Mentally Mutual, and I spoke on healing our money story. I focus on money mindset, how to heal our relationship to money, self and others, so that we can dream limitlessly. So we took some time to unpack our money story, gain some language around it, identify our feelings and emotions, and maybe expose some limiting beliefs, as well as some lies that we may be believing, so that we can reframe them into truths. And then we took some time to dream about what could be for ourselves, our communities, and those we love.
Yeah, so my presentation was Sueños to Security. So really making money strategic moves towards retirement, pay negotiation. We also went over money mindset, and essentially just making a path on how the women can go ahead and make money in their current roles, how to go ahead and plan for retirement in the future, if that is retirement here, or like me, I ain't gonna retire here, I'll be in Oaxaca. So having a better understanding of what that looks like, and just really work through all of the money mindset things too. And of course, I forgot to introduce myself, but I'm Adriana Galvan. I am the jefa and founder of Adriana Talks Dinero, where I do financial literacy education and money coaching. And I also am pretty active in social media to give you topics and little tips and tricks here and there about money as well.
I love it. As you can see, these are my go-to jefas whenever I have any money questions. I shared that I love that Jasmine is the person who inspired me to dream, to look at potential, to think outside of this American dream box and just go for it. And so I love how she has a different way of thinking in a more healed way when we're talking about money. And Adriana is the person who has all the info on advocating for herself, thanks to her parents who encouraged her to make sure that she was set financially, that she didn't need to depend on anybody. And we are seeing those generational shifts in real time as she then shares all of this information to encourage us to advocate for ourselves in the finance area in our own lives. And so I love hanging out with these women. I love chatting with them, and I love when they get to then share their expertise and knowledge with other people. So after they gave those two amazing workshops, we had a Q&A where I was like, all right, we're going to just talk about anything and everything. If you have a question, if you need help on something, if you need reframing, like, let's talk about it. And everyone brought their questions. I feel like I had some questions lined up for us, but the questions were like back to back, like fire. And it was just a really good conversation. And so the things that we're going to just touch on in this episode are investing, retirement, and debt management. So why don't we go ahead and get started on, let's see. I like starting with debt management because, Jasmine, that's kind of how you opened up your workshop, talking about your own story. So how, if we have debt, and I think we talked about like medical debt or college debt, like how do we wrap our heads around having debt and then shift to move forward into decreasing that, or like just, I'd love for you to share how you walk through your own journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit about my story. I experienced bankruptcy and losing everything back in 2010. And rebuilding for me, I believe, was an opportunity to reimagine and redefine what success looks like. And so I was confronted with the realities of my decisions. And I think step number one is truly understanding your money mindset and your story. How has your lived experience, your story, impacted your relationship with self, others, and money? And when you can begin that healing journey and get a little bit more clarity around the story, I think is when you can then start making some informed decisions around creating a plan for becoming debt-free. So if you have debt, I think the number one is creating a plan. Well, how do you create the plan? Well, first you have to know where your money is going. So track your dollars and then see how much extra you have left over or what you can cut down if possible, and be able to then create that plan to say, hey, I want to pay off this amount of debt in this amount of time is a strategy you could take, or you can do the snowball effect where you can, there's just so many different methods. I think it's really hard to pinpoint exactly one way to do it or one recommendation. But I would say, like, if you have like for me, for example, we took on some renovations debt back in 2020 to renovate a property. And for me, because I own a business, I went backwards. So I went with, okay, I have $24,000 of debt. I want to pay it off in a year, which means I need to earn an additional, on top of income already earning, I need to earn an additional $24,000. So that means I need to book an additional 12 weddings or photo shoots to be able to pay this debt off. Now, mind you, this happened during COVID. So that completely stopped my entire plan around what I had to do, but we got creative, we pivoted, and then we were able to use our assets, which was our property, rent it out, and triple our income, and actually pay that debt down in 8 months instead of the full 12 months. So again, there's so many different debt strategies. So you can use the snowball method, you can create a timeline, and then you can just do, create monthly plans. And then what I did was on paper, I would track how to pay off like how much I paid off for that month. And then on a new piece of paper, I just was like, okay, this is how much I paid off. This is the new goal. This is what I'm going to do. And it just seeing it allowed me to stay focused with my goals and how I wanted to approach paying off my particular debt in that season.
Ooh, I think we have such a negative mindset around this idea of debt. Like, I remember as a young child, like that was the worst thing. You never wanted to have debt, and that you shouldn't spend any money that you don't have. And if you want something, and yes, those are all like, okay, like you want to be wise with your money, but there's no one that tells you like, okay, well, what if you do hit that point? Like, no one tells you that, like, oh, in order to get your education, you might need to go into debt. And then once you're there, you're like, okay, well, I graduated and now I have this huge amount of debt. And the future seems so like trapping, like you're trapped in these monthly payments, you're trapped, like you're not allowed to save, and all the negative emotions and thoughts that come with that, whether that is like having to file for bankruptcy or having like realizing you have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars of debt after you graduate, or like maybe you just realize like you've maxed out credit cards and now you find yourself in a lot of debt. How have you been able to create this joy-based budgeting, which is what you talk about a lot in your work, this budgeting that doesn't like stifle you and put you in like this time out per se mentality that's like, okay, well now I don't get to enjoy anything nice. I'm being punished. Like I have to put myself on punishment because of XYZ, and now how do I move forward? Because then like you're just, it's like negative upon negative upon negative thoughts based on like the ideas and thoughts that we had growing up. So I know this is like a loaded question, a loaded topic, but I know that you like talk about this a lot in the work that you do. So I'd love to hear more about how you approach that in a way that is like gentle.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think there's so much shame that intersects with our relationship with dollars. And I think a big part of that is realizing that money is just a tool. And when we can lean into that and that it doesn't determine our worth or our value, that we have economic power, whether that's, a lot or a little, depending on what season of life we're in, this amount of dollars doesn't impact my worth or value. So when we can separate our sense of self from the tool of money is when then I think there's an opportunity to create your joys and your values list. And this is what I walk my clients through. I walk them through a process of identifying what brings you joy and what do you value. And when they do that, then they can create their joy-based budget that allows for them to make financial decisions that pours back into their values and their joys while also creating goals and accomplishing what they're looking to accomplish for their future. For many, that's debt, becoming debt-free. For others, that's retirement investment, right? I think there's space for the both ands. And my hope in the finance space is that we can find a more centered approach that's shame-free, that allows an invitation for us to have this relationship with money, because money is just a tool. Mm-hmm. And when we can sit in that realization, then it's like, oh, okay, I can tap into unlimited dreaming. I can tap into abundance. I can tap into community wealth. I can tap into collective thriving, right? What does that all look like? And what does that look like for each of us as individuals? Because the more we are in alignment with our joys and our values, the more it means that I can I can move forward in my goals. But I can also celebrate Adriana. I can celebrate you and the things that you're doing. Maybe our joys are different, and that's okay. So instead of complaining or feeling jealous, I can celebrate your wins as you celebrate my wins. And I think when we can get into that space of freedom with our joys and abundance is then when we can see the kind of impact we're looking to make, and not comparing ourselves and seeing, this person is so much further than where I am financially. And instead it's like, oh, okay, their path is their path. My path is my path.
I love that. And yes, I think we all are trying to work towards generational change, but we're doing it within like our generational lineage, even though like we're all working together. And so, yes, I love being able to chat with you about the very real feelings that we might experience about like to us or from us, saying like, oh, dang, she is spending money on this concert and I'm over here like putting it in savings or towards my debt, or like someone else is making me feel bad for investing and not spending money on those new shoes or concert tickets, or so, like there's just so many emotions wrapped up to it through it. And I'm glad that both of you talk about that mindset shift and healing that really needs to take place as we're creating this generational change. It's not just about actions, it's about that mindset shift. And speaking of this mindset or mentality, I think something that came up was this feeling of when you actually graduate and are going into the workforce, you think, I should just be grateful for whatever they're going to pay me. Like, don't say, like, don't ask for more, don't ask about vacation time. Like, just put your head down, take it, and be grateful. Because a lot of us might be the first generation to actually have like a salaried job, or like that 9-to-5 corporate job, and we have that potential to get those C-suite positions, and we don't want to mess anything up. And so we're just like, okay, well, I don't want to ask for more. I don't want to like make anyone mad. And I love that Adriana really walks us through understanding what the market value is for our job and encouraging us to then like ask for a little bit more. And so I'd love to chat about the tips that you shared, maybe like 1 or 2 tips when you are going in to get a new job. And then, so first, the tips trying to apply for a new job and knowing how to ask for that salary equity. And then for those who are looking to maybe ask for a pay raise in their current position. So yeah, chat through that. I know that you have a lot of more info, but I'd love for you just to give like a little piece on how we can start shifting that mindset and thinking about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, the first step on either or that you're going to go to is really getting that market value. I've never heard that term before. Essentially, that is how much you are supposed to get paid for the job that you do. And of course, it differentiates between like education level, geographic location, title, industry, things like that. But you need to know what your number is. You can go ahead and find it online through our workshop. I went ahead and I went through what that looks like. And you would go ahead and use that number. And what I tell people all the time is no matter if you are negotiating for a new job or you are negotiating or asking for a promotion in a current role, that you ask for a little bit more than that. Because if you ask for that exact amount, they might lowball you a little bit. So now you're making under what you're supposed to again. So make sure you're asking over that amount. But the big thing when you are going into a job or you're job hunting, is that you go ahead and you ask for your worth. And also ask for those things that are really important to you. So for me, it's time off. So I negotiated my vacation time. And also, like, if maybe work-life balance is important for you, go ahead and negotiate like a flex schedule. Or go ahead and see like if you can start benefits right away, or if they can take over your COBRA payments because you were laid off at your last role and you need a little bit of help or something in the meantime. So go ahead and ask for those things. The worst thing that they can say is no. Like I went through the workshop. A lot of people have this fear that if they negotiate, it means that that person can take away that job offer. No, like you were presented that job offer because you were the best one for the role. You were whatever sort of thing they saw in you, like you are the one. So they're going to try everything in their power to go ahead and get you onto that role. So it's important to go ahead and ask those questions, understand what your needs are as well when you go into it. But also on the flip side, like if you are in your job and you find your market value, and then let's say that you're like, oh my gosh, I'm getting underpaid like 10 grand. Go into the conversations with your manager. Explain, hey, I have this data. I'm not getting paid fairly. What can we go ahead and do about it? And they just love the data. They love the numbers. So make sure that you're coming across with that correct information. And then also Tell them all of the accomplishments that you had in the role, how you are making them money, how you're saving them money, and all of the sort of problem solving things that you did. When they see you as an asset, they're going to go ahead and work that much harder, because it actually costs a lot of money when an employee leaves a company. So they're going to try everything that they possibly can to go ahead and keep you. So it's really important that even though you've been in a role or with a company for a while, keep on making sure that you're getting paid fairly. And if not, you have to have those conversations with your manager.
I think right now there's value in having those hopeful conversations, because there's a lot of uncertainty in the corporate space. But like you said, like there is value in them keeping you and trying to make everything work. And I think even though I don't have a 9 to 5, every time my husband goes in for like a review, I'm just like, don't like, ooh. I want to interject my own feelings of like, don't make them upset. And he's like, there's nothing that right now this meeting can do for them to be like, yeah, that's it. No, because they've been working with me. And every time they lose someone, they have to go through the process of training and who is going to take all that work. And I'm just like, okay, I can relax a little bit. But I think another good topic that came up during our Q&A and our time together was this topic of investing, because a lot of jobs will have like a 401k for that purpose, and it's like, okay, well, I don't have to think about that. But for entrepreneurs, like we gotta think about retirement. We gotta think about making sure that we are planning for our future. And I love the fact that both of you have two different journeys with this. And something that like resonated with all of us today was that it's not too late. And so even though you might not have started investing or like planning for your own retirement until your late 30s, 40s, 50s, like there's no shame in starting now. So we talked a lot about Roth IRAs and traditional IRAs, custodial IRAs, all the different options that we have when planning for retirement. So I'd love for you to touch on specifically maybe a little bit more about the Roth IRAs, because that's traditionally what is accessible for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Roth IRA, it's actually not only just for entrepreneurs. So if you have a 9 to 5, like that is an avenue you can go ahead and go down. Actually, one of my favorite sort of accounts, just because what a lot of people don't understand is when you're choosing these investment accounts, there's a lot of factors when it comes to tax implications. So how you get taxed for it, or do you pay tax before or after? So with the Roth IRA, you pay taxes now, and then you go ahead and you invest the money in the account, you assign it to a stock or an ETF, and then it grows. So whatever money grows off of that, when it is time for you to retire, you're not going to pay taxes on it. And what I tell everybody is like, I don't know about you, but I know every single time I turn on the TV or I listen to the radio, I never hear that we get a tax cut, right? It's always the taxes go up and now there's an increase here. So I would much rather pay my taxes up front than having to wait later on. Because I do work in my 9 to 5 for human resources, I can probably count the number of times on my hand at this point where I've been cussed out because someone retires and they pull all their money out of their 401k and they get upset because come to find out they got to pay taxes on it. And they're like, why didn't you tell me? And I'm like, I just started here. How am I supposed to know that you didn't know? So it's really understanding what the systems in place are and really understanding which accounts are going to work best for you.
And so for you, Jasmine, you just opened a Roth IRA. as an entrepreneur, you took matters into your own hands. And I'll be transparent that I have not done it yet. I'm going to today. It was a commitment I made at the summit. But I'd love to hear your journey with it. Like, what were your feelings around it? And like, what did you think like after you did it?
Yeah, so I actually opened it up, I think 3-4 years ago, but I didn't put any money in it. I was too scared. I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. And I think when I turned 40, I had this like awakening moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm entering into midlife and I don't have a retirement plan. Okay, Jazz, we need to get our stuff in order. And so I actually worked with like a few different money coaches, even with Adriana, we worked together, just to help me feel like a little bit more comfortable with the idea of investing. I think for me, it just was taking a little bit longer for it to click. And because it hadn't quite clicked, I was like, I don't feel ready to move on into this next step. And so if I'm transparent, there's still parts of it that I feel like haven't fully clicked, but I'm okay with that. So last year, I started putting some money in my Roth. I also opened up an HSA because I had a high deductible qualifying plan for health insurance. And I guess just navigating between the accounts and getting more comfortable was like, what really was that push that I needed to take that step. And now that I'm familiar with it, I'm like, oh, that was so much easier than I thought. Like, why did I wait so long to do it? But I think there's opportunity because I feel like I waited so late in the game. This is definitely a strategy I'm still investing in as a retirement plan, but I'm also looking for other ways where I can tap into wealth building strategies that allow for me to have a diversified portfolio. So for me, that's through real estate. So really looking at what potential creative financing opportunities exist, as well as short-term rentals and midterm rentals and all the things. So I'm super excited to explore it all, but being very active towards moving that needle because I did get a much later start in life, but I know that it's never too late to start. So I'm super grateful for that reminder as well.
We talked a lot about investing during our Q&A, and I loved what you said, Adriana, and the encouragement you gave for people right now looking at the stock market, and seeing things shift in ways that we haven't seen it shift in a few years. So what would you say to people who are like, what should I do with the money I've already invested? I'm seeing a lot of red. There's a lot of economic instability in the US right now. And my gut feeling is to be afraid to I feel like I'm losing money. But I love what you said to encourage us during this time. So would you share that advice and encouragement?
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, yes, the market is going red, it's going down. I see it, we all see it. But you don't lose money until you pull your money out. So if you pull your money out, then yes, you are losing money. But at the end of the day, the market has its ebbs and flows. It will go up and down, and what goes down must come up at the end of the day. So essentially right now, actually the market's on sale. So right now is the time to go ahead and put your money in. And right now it is time to go ahead and, invest, or at least learn how to invest and start getting a piece of the pie, because at the end of the day, we do live in a capitalistic society here in the United States. And these businesses aren't in business to make profit, to win, to make those millions and billions of dollars. So instead of just having them go ahead and take advantage of all of those wins, let's, us as well as women, as people of color, as Latinas, take a piece of the pie too. So while everyone's freaking out that the market's down and whatnot, there's actually a group of people that are really excited right now because they're like, the market's on sale. Now I can buy 2 stocks for the price of 1. So you start getting, comfortable with the idea of kind of being a little bit more risky. And it is going to take some healing. It is going to take some time to get comfortable with it, because we do have all of these sort of nuances within our community when it comes around money, where we get fearful or we want to pull out. We're like, oh, we don't like this. But at the end of the day, investing is a long-term process. Like, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint.
And when investing, like we are on social media constantly, and we see the ads for apps that are like, oh, well, it's super simple to invest, just sign up with our app. What is the difference, or do you have any advice on going the Roth IRA route or doing investing with like Acorn or all the other apps? And I don't even want to say the apps because they're not paying me, so no free marketing here. But even when we were all at FinCon, there was an app that was pretty new and encouraging people to use it for their investing. And so it's like when you start researching and trying to figure out what you're going to do first, there's a lot of things coming at us. And it's like, even if you say a specific app, our phones are listening and you start getting ads for those. And you're just like, oh, well, this must be the best thing. So what is your advice when trying to start and like navigating all of our options?
Yeah, so first, like, find a trusted, reputable finance platform. Look at the fees that are associated with it. There are a number of different sorts of accounts that you can go ahead and open up that is available to all of us, just really depending on the season of life we're in, how much money we make and things like that. But at the end of the day, you're going to want to go ahead and open up the best account that's for you. Let's say it's a Roth IRA, because of the tax benefits to it. And go ahead and open up that account on a trusted platform and start contributing the money into that account and then assigning the money to an ETF or to a stock, to a company pretty much. Now, those other apps that we were talking about earlier that kind of like sell you on investing so you can start getting used to it, those actually charge high fees when you want to get your money out. So stay away from those. You can go ahead and like start getting comfortable with the idea of investing. But at the end of the day, I've actually had a client that they ended up taking like almost half of her money because she wanted to go ahead and pull it out. So just be very careful in where you're putting the money in. Ask those important questions like, what happens when I want to take the money out? What sort of fees are associated with this? Is there like limits to how much money I can put in and things like that? But, kind of at the end of the day, if it's super flashy, I would stay away from it. If it's quite boring, that's the way you want to go.
That's funny. Okay. Last question as we wrap up this conversation. We are seeing the price of basic necessities go up and up and up. I feel like it's like during the pandemic, there was the price of gas that went up. Yeah. There was this anxiety of like goods running out. And now we're seeing with different products that we consume on a day-to-day basis, those prices are going like they're skyrocketing. And I go through TikTok, and the one TikTok that made me laugh was like, oh, our go-to meal used to be like eggs and salchichas, and now it's mostly salchicha and just like one egg. And so things are really starting to shift and change, and especially with the tariffs that are upon us with the imports of like our aguacates and like other foods that we rely on with the rest of the world. Like, we're seeing the cost of living really go up in a short period of time. And so I know you both like talk about this in your workshops, but how do you then shift around your budget to account for the rising prices, whether it's like maybe lowering what you're investing in, lowering some food or shifting it around, like the budgeting. I'm sure that the listeners would appreciate some insight or advice or just encouragement during this time where it's like, dang, we were finally like starting to get our footing on budgeting and trying to get stuff right. And now there's a huge increase in just basic necessities. So how do we continue to move ahead and, well, how do we continue to move forward and still feel like we're making a difference in getting ahead?
Yeah, that's such a good question. What I like to tangibly do is what I call a budget audit. And I like to do this quarterly where I look at, well, I'm always tracking, right? I track every month just to see where I'm at. But the audit is to say, okay, is my spending in alignment with my joys and values? That's like the first thing I do. If that's a yes, and I see that I'm consistently out of budget with groceries, let's say, because the cost of eggs is like $8 a carton. Then the next question is my budget realistic then? Let me gather some information around what maybe a food budget for a family of 5 in my context looks like. So I use the tool that the USDA has. They actually have a 4-option budget. They have a thrifty budget, a low, a moderate, and then a liberal food budget. So as a family of 5, we use the thrifty one, the lowest one, and we are actually under that budget for the 5 of us. So for me, it's not a spending issue, right? We're in budget. We have food allergies as well. And so that right now is currently realistic for us. But let's say in 2-3 months, things completely shift, then I'm going to have to do a budget audit again that says, hey, let me pull the information from the USDA. Let me see how that aligns with what my current grocery budget is. And let me maybe have to reduce some of my savings or other investments so that I can be able to create a more equitable food budget that's realistic for a family of 5 with food allergies. But when we can approach it with curiosity, I think is when it removes the shame behind thinking, oh, it's that I'm overspending, when in reality, it's not that we're overspending. It's just that there's been a shift in the economy.
And I think too, looking at budgets and what you're spending is like for groceries, since that we're on that topic. I think it's very much also seeing like how maybe like one ingredient that's on your grocery list can be used in maybe 3 different recipes rather than just one, right? To cut back on that food waste. And then also like I live in the suburbs of Chicago, so I have a garden. So I go ahead and grow my veggies. I have fruit trees for like the whole egg situation. My dad has chickens, so I have that luxury. So see how maybe you can think outside of the box and be creative, right? And say, hey, I'll go ahead and drop your kids off at school, but can we get like maybe 1.5 dozen of eggs or something for someone that has chickens? So it's really thinking in that aspect, or even saying, hey, instead of doing like a name brand of something, let's go ahead and go the alternative route and getting the generic brand, the store brand. I'm the child of the 90s. I remember my mother taking me to like the local Jewel and doing like the nickel and dime sale. There's nothing wrong with that. My mom shopped at Aldi before it was cool. So it's like trying to see how you can also kind of extend that dollar, because like Jasmine said, a lot of times it's not because we're not budgeting enough. It's just the inflation with everything and just the pricing. And, next there's, some sort of E. coli thing going on, and now like all the lettuce is off the shelves and now you find another alternative. So it's really just kind of being on your toes and seeing how to go ahead and look at different options or barter, or see sort of what options are out there. Like if you're not like a green thumb, that's completely fine. Maybe you can grow cilantro, out of a vase or something, and that saves you a few bucks here and there, or a few tomatoes, or like start getting like introduced in a few things. So there's there's different ways to go ahead and go about it as we're starting to see things going up in price.
So this was just like a little snippet of the amazing conversations that we had during our summit. And I am just so thankful to have met both of these amazing jefas and just being part of the work that they're doing to empower, educate, elevate the next generation and our own generation. Like, I think it starts with us being able to tap into resources to just have the courage to have these conversations. So I thank you so much. Both of you have a lot going on coming up, especially going into the rest of the year. So I'd love for you to chat about what is next for you guys after this summit.
So I can go ahead and go first. So I have one-on-one money coaching going on right now. There has been a huge need in the community, and I'm going to go ahead and fulfill that need. I'm also doing career coaching now. So if you want to know how to negotiate pay or any sort of, resume rebuilding and whatnot, more than happy to help. And I also have events and workshops that I do on my own as well, amongst different topics such as debt payoff, pay negotiation, setting up your LLC in the state of Illinois, and something that's coming up this spring, which I'm really excited about, is group coaching. So financial literacy education, very much on what I do on the one-on-one money coaching side, but we are doing it in a group. So you have your community of women to go ahead and go along this journey with you. And we're going to go over an array of different topics so you can thrive with your money.
I love that. And I have so much going on as well. I do one-on-one financial counseling. I focus on helping you heal your money mindset, create your joys and values list, as well as creating a debt payment plan. Additionally, I'm working on launching my Money Healing Circle podcast, where I'm going to be gathering a diverse group of women to share their stories. It's going to be very story centered as a way to just destigmatize the topic of money and how we experience and engage with money. And then I also help entrepreneurs, specifically creative entrepreneurs, dream limitlessly, go after their dreams, and be able to build thriving businesses and overcome the money blocks and mindsets that we may have when it comes to building our creative businesses.
So between the two of you, people can get their money right, whether it is personally, whether it's with their business, whether it's with their corporate job. Like, these are my go-to girls to talk anything about money. And I'm just so thankful. I think if you have the ability to hire them to lead a workshop for your organization, please get in touch with them. If you have the ability to just share their names so that they can speak to a wider audience, whether that's in corporate, nonprofit, entrepreneur space, like, they got it going on. So tell people where they can connect with you on the internet, on socials, everywhere.
So you can go ahead and connect with me on my website at adrianatoxdinero.com. I'm also on social media, more active on Instagram and TikTok, but I'm also on Facebook at Adriana Toxdinero. So that's where you can go ahead and find me.
Yeah, so you can find me on my website, mentallymutual.com, and then on Instagram, Mentally Mutual as well. But I create personal finance content on my personal page, which is yourfriend.jasmine, because I'm your friend.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for taking the time to record this episode after a long summit already. But I'm just so thankful to be able to reach more listeners, reach more people, so that we can continue this conversation, because it is going to, the more we have this conversation, the more it's going to shift like complete generations. And so, yeah, I'm thankful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, now let's go get some flautas.
Yes.
All right. Bye. Okay, amigos, thank you so much for listening. There will be a new episode every Tuesday, so after you listen, feel free to take a screenshot to post on Instagram and tag at Elevating La Cultura, or send me a DM. You can also comment on our YouTube video if you're watching online. I always like to hear from people and how they resonate with the stories that I share. So, leave a review on Apple Podcasts so we can get more ears listening to these stories and we can continue elevating La Cultura. All right, enjoy the rest of your day, afternoon, evening, whenever you're listening, y nos vemos next week. Bye.